All right.
Hello, everyone. Let's go ahead and get started. Thank you for tuning into our weekly biohack workshop. During this workshop, we encourage you to jot down your questions and get them to the person who invited you. So if they're unable to answer a question for you, they definitely will find someone who can. Today, we'll spend the first part of this workshop covering the science and research behind biohacking. And since a few of you have asked us about starting your own biohack enterprise, we'll spend a few minutes at the end covering that for you. Now, for those of you who don't know me, my name is Diane Rodriquez. My amazing husband, Marco, and I have been in private practice as occupational therapists for nearly 10 years. We are so blessed with a great team and have built one of the largest clinics of its kind in the country, but it always hasn't been easy. A business such as ours definitely has its pros and cons. One of the cons is that throughout the years, we've been approached by many companies asking us to promote their product line. And generally, we'll do our due diligence and research any and all claims made. Most of the time, we find them just to be another Me Too product that lacks credible scientific backing. Plus, with the daily stresses of running a traditional business, we weren't excited about something new. But we are so grateful for our friend Patsy Caulfield's patience. She never gave up on us. And after 3 years, we agreed to sit down and take a serious look about what all the fuss was about. And what we learned that day shook us to our core. We learned that institutions from all over the world, like Harvard and Johns Hopkins and many others, were studying something called NRF2 against conditions linked to oxidative stress. Needless to say, we became very interested. And what was most significant for us during those 3 years that we wouldn't even take a look at this opportunity, both of our fathers were diagnosed with very serious health conditions. Marco's father even passed away. And we were convinced that based on the studies with LSU and American Heart Association and the National Institute of Aging and so many others, that this would have helped both of our fathers have a better quality of life. So we made a decision that day that we would never stop sharing this. I'm going to turn this over to Marco so he can share more of what we saw that day that has literally activated something inside us that has changed the way we look at and think about the future of our physical and financial health. Marco?
All right, absolutely. Thank you, Diane. And you know, it's not often where a person can say that any particular day was a pivotal moment in a person's life. But I got to tell you that the day that Patsy, Carrie, and Dr. Rodarte, the day they came and shared with us the biohacking principles, that would certainly count as one of those pivotal days for us anyways, where, you know, kind of like where life would never be the same. So if you're watching this, I hope it does the same for you. So, you know, as Diane mentioned, we took a serious look at this. And my thought was that, you know, it's too late for me to really do anything to help my father, but, you know, maybe it wasn't too late to help my son, Seth. So I want to introduce you to, I'm going to share some slides with you. And I want to introduce to you to my son, Seth, and tell you about our story. Let's see here. Can you guys see the slides? I hope you can. Diane, if you can unmute yourself, make sure we can see the slides, and we'll get started here.
You're good to go, Marco.
All right, good deal. So anyway, so just a quick introduction. This is my family. This is my wife, my children. But I want you to pay attention to this little guy right here. This is Seth. Seth is a big part of our story. And I want to go into that just a little bit so you kind of understand why it was that Diane and I, after building one of the largest outpatient rehab clinics of its kind, why we took a look at this, why it was so important. And a quick story on Seth. Seth, when he was born, there was no real issues with him. He was born just like any other kid. He was very funny, loved to watch me and loved to work out, as you can tell in the picture here on the right. But when Seth was 7 years old, he was at a summer camp. He had an accident and he sustained a closed head injury. And we did therapy with him. We did all the things that we needed to do, but he just had some ongoing residual issues where he ended up in special education. He had some issues with his speech, also with coordination. So after seeing this and understanding, because I'm a science geek, I'm going to try not to geek you out too much tonight. But after looking at the science behind this, I thought, okay, if this can do what they say it can do, maybe it would help my son Seth. So we started biohacking with him. And what I saw, what happened to him over the next few weeks, I could have never imagined after being a therapist for so long. So this is Seth's grades. I want you to take a look at this. This is Seth's grades pre-biohacking. This is with special education. All right. This is also with me being involved every single day of this kid's life. I knew all of the teachers, I had all their cell phone numbers. I mean, this kid required, he would talk about high maintenance. All right. Starts biohacking. Look at the difference in his grades. His grades start to come up. After 16 weeks of biohacking, look at this, all A's with the exception of, I think it's funny that the only B he got was in Spanish, considering our last name is Rodriquez. But he was crushing it. He tested out of special education. So I want you to understand something. After 16 weeks or less of biohacking, this did for him what 8 years of therapy could not do. Now, I'm typically a pretty skeptical guy about things, but I had to really start wrapping my brain around this and wondering, is this real? So I did what most people do when they see something and they see something that's really cool and kind of gets your attention. I started telling people about this. One of the people I told was Anna Cox, and she's a good friend of ours. She also works for us, but Anna was having a lot of health issues. She was using a walker. I won't really go into the details on the diagnosis, but she was having a lot of issues with her joints, a lot of pain in her joints, a lot of stiffness. She was using a walker. She had already ordered her wheelchair, and she was using a shower chair. So she starts asking me, so do you think this would help me? I'm like, I don't know, maybe it will. And so she says, well, you know what? I've got nothing to lose. My life is pretty much over if I don't find something. So we started sharing this with her. It took about 4 to 5 weeks. She walks into our clinic, no walker. Anna, where's your walker? She says, I don't know. I don't really need it anymore. I think it's in the garage. She had literally worked her way, biohacked her way out of using that walker. So what do? We tell somebody else. We told Lori Miranda. Now, Lori says, I want to start biohacking with my son. Now, her son was having a lot of issues. He was 10 years old. He was virtually nonverbal, was having a lot of sensory issues, lack of socialization. Again, I won't go into diagnosis, but I'm sure you can imagine. No socialization skills, no verbal skills. She starts biohacking with him. It took, again, about 4 to 5 weeks. Now, these are all very atypical results, okay? So don't think it's not magic. It doesn't happen overnight. But with them, it did. It happened very quickly. Her son walks into our clinic, starts after about 5, 6 weeks, starts engaging in full and complete conversations, descriptive conversations, after 10 years of being virtually nonverbal. Now, as a therapist who works with both pediatrics and adults, I had to start thinking, okay, maybe there is something to this. So I dove into the science behind this, and I started learning more about what this biohacking and nutrigenomics is all about. So throughout this workshop, you're going to hear the term biohacking, you hear about nutrigenomics, and biohacking basically is a term that's used within the science of nutrigenomics. Now, nutrigenomics is the science of how natural compounds affect your body all the way down to the genetic expression. Now, we all know that if you eat junk food all the time, chances are you're not going to be very healthy. And if you eat healthy food all the time, good luck with that. But if you did that, you would have a better chance of being healthy. But well, the science of nutrigenomics goes a lot deeper than that. It actually looks at how certain compounds can affect your body all the way down to the genetic expression. Now, did you know that in the human body, you have about approximately 20,000 genes, and only 10% of those genes are what we call set in stone, which means that science hasn't figured out how to manipulate or how to activate or deactivate those genes. They are just there, and we don't know how to actually get in there and do anything with them. But that means that the other 90% of your genes can be affected, either upregulated or downregulated. So that's what the science of nutrigenomics looks at, how to turn on those survival genes, the good genes, so that we can attack what we call those 3 theories of aging. Now, people ask me all the time, is this science of nutrigenomics, is this something new? Yes and no. The science of genetics has been around for a long time, but really wasn't until the early 2000s where things really kind of came into the forefront. And it all started because of some discoveries that were made by a gentleman by the name of Dr. Joe McCord. This guy's a 4-time Nobel Prize nominee, winner of the Elliott Crescent Award. He's a big, big deal. He made several discoveries in the world of microbiology and so forth. Well, it caught the attention, all his discoveries caught the attention of the medical field, but it also caught the attention of the news media, in particularly John Quinones from ABC Primetime. So John Quinones is an investigative reporter, multi-award winning, and he goes out there. Now understand something. When Dr. McCord shows up, when John Quinones shows up at your place of business, it's never a good thing. He is there to take apart and poke holes into anything, any claims that you're making. So I'm going to show you a short clip because that report aired on ABC primetime. It was the lead story. Now think about this. When was the last time that a lead story was about health or nutrition or anything that was good? Now, as you watch this video, I want you to think two things. One, if this is true, how could this help you? And for those of you who are looking at starting your own biohacking enterprise, I want you to think about this. Again, if this is true, how can you capitalize on this in our new connected economy? So let's take a short look at the video. Here we go.
You want to get an edge on turning back the clock? Who doesn't? Well, it's no longer science fiction, but science possibility, a potential breakthrough. It may not look like the fountain of youth, but inside this nondescript building, I'm about to become part of an exciting experiment. For me, it begins with a blood test.
It wouldn't be the first time I've given blood for this company.
They want to check my levels of something called T-bars, which is a rough indicator of a person's actual age. T-bars can identify a condition known as oxidative stress, a kind of measure of the wear and tear on our bodies. Oxidative stress, like the rusting of an engine, is not a good thing. The problem of aging begins with the very food we eat to give us energy. As our cells burn that food, they also release toxic chemicals. Those chemicals, you may know them as free radicals, react with all the components of our cells, literally bombarding them millions of times per second, damaging all our cells. And the result? Oxidative stress, and we all have it. The body fights back with a system of defenses. It makes two antioxidant enzymes, catalase and SOD, whose job is to gobble up the free radicals before they can harm our cells.
So, doctor, how often do I take these?
And so, here I go. With that swallow, I've just become part of a potentially landmark scientific experiment. It's called Protandim, and tests have already shown that it revs up the manufacture of those good enzymes in our bodies. More enzymes, fewer free radicals to harm us. Normally, oxidative stress, measured by those T-bars, increases with age, but taking just one pill of Protandim a day reversed that trend for everyone at every age, even for an 80-year-old. So just what's in this seemingly incredible pill? Well, actually, its roots are very humble. Protandim is a combination of 5 plant ingredients. Some you may know: green tea or turmeric, a spice used in Indian cooking. Others, Withania somnifera and Silybum marianum, are more exotic. High oxidative stress is associated with more than aging. It's been linked to hundreds of illnesses.
It's at the very center of many diseases: liver disease, diabetes, emphysema, asthma, all of these, strokes, heart attacks, even mental disease. Yes,
Depression?
Alzheimer's disease, depression.
But what about my progress? After nearly 2 weeks now, it's time to get my results. The result? My level of oxidative stress has declined dramatically. Just look at where I fall on the graph, before and after. Have we turned back the clock? Maybe not on the outside, but deep inside within my cells. Yes, indeed.
We do know that oxidative stress is part of those disease processes. I don't want to wait until I'm 80 years old to find out that I should have taken it.
The company that makes Protandim says its tests show the pill, made from ingredients used for centuries, is absolutely safe. For more, go to our website at abcnews.com.
All right, so guys, I've seen that report probably about 500 times, and every time I look at it, it still gives me goosebumps. Now, that report originally aired in 2005, and at the time, LifeVantage was a small biotech company, probably doing a couple $100,000 in volume. What happened after that report, no one would have expected. They received, within the next week or so, they received over $5 million worth of orders. Now, think about that. That sounds like a good thing. I mean, what business wouldn't want $5 million worth of orders? But here's the problem. These guys are a group of scientists. They had no infrastructure. They had no real manufacturing to be able to handle all those orders. So everything got messed up and everything was back ordered for 8 months. Now imagine seeing the full report. Now the full report is about 15 minutes long. seeing the full report, wanting to get that into your body, knowing someone like me when I was thinking about my father, wanting to get that into somebody's body and then being told that you have to wait 8 months. It was really kind of a disaster. But here's the good news. Universities from all around the world saw that John Quinones's oxidative stress came down by what, 45% in 13 days. So that caused a lot of these universities to contact McCord's, the lab, and say, we want to study protandim as it relates to whatever area of study we're involved with. So for example, LSU, in conjunction with the Skin Cancer Foundation, they studied protandim. They found that the protandim suppresses tumors, and it actually decreases the proliferation of skin melanoma by an average of 57%. Now think about that. The American Heart Association, actually John Hopkins had a very similar study to that, and what they found was very similar. John Hopkins did one on lung cancer. The American Heart Association, they published a 26-page article in Circulation magazine on its effects on cardiac health. Now, to date, it is the only branded natural product ever featured in Circulation magazine by the American Heart Association. The results were so dramatic that they funded another study with Ohio State University on its effects on bypass surgeries. You've got Harvard Medical School, which studied this, Texas Tech, and the list goes on and on. There's universities from Czechoslovakia and all over the world that have studied this, and they're all saying the same thing. They all talk about how this works on mammals. All right, now, in that report, that ABC Primetime, you heard the word oxidative stress. Now, it blows me away how few people even know what oxidative stress is. So I'm going to spend just a couple minutes explaining this to you. Oxidative stress, the first thing you need to know is that every single one of us has it. In fact, this is such a big deal that if you go into PubMed.gov, which is our National Library of Medicine. Now, I want to explain just a quick moment about PubMed.gov. That is where your doctor and therapists and health professionals like myself, that's where we go to get our research. I hope you understand that your physician doesn't go to Google to find his research on different diseases or different medications and so forth, right? This is where we go. This is the gold standard for research. And if you do a search on oxidative stress, I did this back in 2019. There was already over 200,000 studies on this subject of oxidative stress. That's how important it is, because get this, you got to understand that research is not free. It costs, every study costs tens of thousands of dollars. So when you multiply that times the 200,000+ studies, we're talking about hundreds of billions, if not trillions of dollars that are being spent to study this little subject of oxidative stress, and yet the average person knows nothing about it. It just absolutely blows my mind. So let's take a look at real quick what oxidative stress is and why you should be concerned about it and why you should do something about it. So real quick, if you cut an apple open and you let the apple sit out for a while, what happens to the apple? Right, it turns brown. It's the same process that occurs if you leave an apple sitting out for a while. What happens to the apple? Yeah, it starts to turn brown. It starts to oxidize. It's the same process that happens if you take a piece of iron and you let it sit outside, exposed to water and the elements. What happens to the iron? It starts to rust. It starts to oxidize. The same process happens in our cells. Literally, you could say that you are rusting from the inside out. And where does it come from? It comes from the food that you eat. Now think about all of the pesticides, all of the preservatives. You literally would have to eat. There was a study that was done with LSU, with UCLA, where they said that our food now, many of our foods, blueberries, spinach, and other types of foods, are literally, you have to eat 43 times as much of it now as you did in the 1950s just to get the same nutritional content because of all the pesticides, all the preservatives in the food. But what about the air that we breathe? Sure, it's polluted. We all want cleaner air, but how many of you are going to give up your vehicles to do that? Not me. All right, maybe radiation or cell phones. All of that leads to oxidative stress. And so what are your options? Oh, one thing real quick that I want to mention is we know that oxidative stress has now been linked to well over 200 diseases. I want you to understand that. Oxidative stress has been linked to over 200 diseases. Now, we're not going to get into that here tonight, but I want to encourage you to get back with the person who invited you to look at this and really ask a bunch of questions. I think that's what I did with Carrie. I probably talked her ear off, and Patsy and Dr. Rodriquez. I asked so many questions, but I wanted to know if this thing was for real. Well, so what are your options to get rid of oxidative stress? Well, Protandim has been clinically proven. What it does is it boosts that NRF2 pathway. And I don't want to get too much into detail, but the NRF2 pathway is a pathway that exists inside of the endoplasmic reticulum. I know I just geeked some of you guys out, but it actually turns on over 300 of those positive survival enzymes. And it all together, what it does is it has been clinically proven to reduce your oxidative stress levels by an average of 40% in 30 days and up to 70% in 120 days. People ask me all the time, so what's so magical about this little yellow pill? Well, look, guys, it's not magic, it's science. It is 5 ingredients. Some of these you might be taking, like turmeric, milk thistle, green tea, bacoba, and ashwagandha. But the magic, if you will, is in the dosage. And I don't have the slide for it tonight, but typically, it's almost like if you're baking bread. If you bake bread, it's not just about having the ingredients, it's about having the right dosages. Well, Protandim is 18 times more powerful because of the dosages as if you took each one of these individually. All right. In fact, this has been studied by so many different universities. At Washington State University, they studied that NRF2 pathway, and this is what they said about NRF2. They said NRF2 may well become the most extraordinary therapeutic and most extraordinary preventative breakthrough in the history of medicine. I want you to really think about that for just a moment. The most extraordinary therapeutic and most extraordinary preventative breakthrough in the history of medicine. And I encourage you, for those of you who are science geeks like myself, find the study. Look at all of the different diseases that they studied. Again, we can't talk about those tonight, but all the different things that they say that NRF2 can help. All right. Now, the second theory of aging is the theory of mitochondrial dysfunction. Now, what is that, right? Inside of every single one of your cells, you have what's called mitochondria. And if you remember from junior high school biology, it's sort of the powerhouse of the cell. It's what gives your body, your cells energy. You remember ATP, Krebs cycle, and all that stuff. But what happens is over the course of time, the mitochondria starts to die off. In fact, there's some studies out that say that by the time you're 50, you have about 50% of the mitochondria that you did as a youth. And by the time you're 90, you've only got 10% of the mitochondria that you did as a youth. That doesn't take a microbiologist to figure out or compare the energy levels of a 70-year-old person compared to a teenager, right? The cognition, the cognitive processing, the reaction time, all of that starts to diminish. Well, we also know that as your mitochondria start to break down, that can lead to all kinds of other health issues. So again, what are your options? Well, our NRF1 is clinically proven to promote what's called mitochondrial biogenesis, which is nothing but a fancy word for the production of newer and healthier mitochondria, okay? I started biohacking a little bit about 2 years ago. After 14 months, I went in and had my blood work done, and my cellular age came back. Even though I'm 52, my cellular age came back at 24.6 years of age. Guys, I feel so much better. My energy levels are there. Heck, I started taking MMA, and I'm loving it. So I can't wait for all this crisis thing to blow over so we can get back in the gym and and keep working out again. Now, the third theory of aging is the theory of sirtuins. Let me explain that real quick. Again, this is all has to do is inside of the cell. Your body produces what's called sirtuins. The sirtuins are really important because what it does is it affects your chromosomes. As you age, your chromosomes, kind of the tips of your chromosomes sort of start to fray, almost like the tip of your shoelaces. You know how that little plastic piece breaks off and then your shoelaces start to fray? Well, the tips of your chromosomes start to do the very same thing. So by boosting your NAD and boosting your sirtuins, what it does is sort of reinforces those tips, allowing your chromosomes to actually, it slows down that degenerative process, that aging process. Now, our product is clinically proven to boost your NAD by 100% in 24 hours. The nearest competitor will boost it by 2%. Now, you could also go into what's called starvation mode, calorie restriction, where you're living off of about 800 calories per day. And that will put your body into kind of a starvation mode, a survival mode, and it'll boost your NAD and your sirtuins by about 94%. I don't know about you, but I'm not living my life on 800 calories. So I would much rather take this NAD Synergizer, boost it by 100%, and knowing that I'm getting all the health benefits from it. Now, when you combine the NRF1, NRF2, and the NAD, in that what was called the, I call it the trifecta, the tri-synergizer, oh my gosh, what it does inside your body is absolutely amazing. If you look at just a couple examples, you look at the NRF2, the HMO-X1 gene, look at this, 51% with Protandem, and with the tri-synergizer, it boosted 848%. That's a 1,563% increase. Look at this one right here, 12% for the NAD, and when you do the tri-synergizer, it boosts it by to 128%. That's a 967% increase. I can't even tell you what that does. I was talking to Dr. Brian Dixon about studies that he had done in the past on this, where they took cells that were virtually on the to the point of death. They activated the NRF1, NRF2, and the NAD. And what he said was that the cells literally started to repair the cellular membrane. They started to produce newer and healthy mitochondria, and the DNA inside of the mitochondria was actually repairing itself. Quite literally, the cell at the end of the study was younger than the cell at the beginning of the study. Now, certainly not saying that you're going to live forever, but certainly if I'm going to live, maybe you're like me, if I'm going to live to be 90, I want to be a healthy 90. If I'm going to live to be 120, I want to be a healthy 120 and then just fall asleep and not wake up. I don't want to do the things that are happening right now. Nobody ever seems to die of old age anymore. So I'm not going to get on my soapbox about that. Let's just move on. Then I love the fact that the company is taking that same NRF2 technology and applied it in different areas. So for example, they have Axio, which originally was marketed as a healthy energy drink. Well, now we know that it's so much more. It's actually NRF2 liquid brain food. And if you take a look at the right side of the screen, this is a child who is having a lot of issues with handwriting. Now, as a therapist, I know that handwriting is a real indicator of a child's, the organization of a child's brain. Look at the Axio, look what happened, his grades and his handwriting, or not his grades, but his handwriting before the Axio, and look at his handwriting after just about 2 weeks of taking the Axio. Now, this is one of the main products that I gave Seth that I believe really helped his brain to function. Now, I want you to understand something. This is not just for kids with ADHD or with brain injuries or with other neurologic issues. This is really for anyone who really wants to kind of live in the zone, right? Clicking in all cylinders. I drink it. I take it all the time. It really helps my brain function. It has the ability to take a brain that is really just kind of that real busy brain and just kind of really anxious all the time. And it really has the ability because it will boost your I'm trying to think of the name of the dopamine levels. Thank you. Dopamine levels and serotonin levels. It will help calm that brain down, but also someone who's kind of really feeling kind of sluggish and really down all the time. It will really help get that brain up a little bit. So it really helps your brain to establish what's called homeostasis, that even keel where you're just able to just manage things. No matter how bad things get, your brain is able to function. Okay, now we also have a probiotic. I love our probiotic. A lot of people take probiotics when what they don't realize is that most probiotics, if they're not time release, then what happens is they dissolve in the stomach. That stomach acids literally destroy the probiotics. That's not where you need it. You need it inside of your lower intestines. Well, our product has a patent. It's a BioHack technology. And so what it is, it's a time release that allows more of the probiotic to get into your lower intestines, which is actually where you need it. I certainly recommend our probiotic. It's done some amazing things. I've seen a lot of not only my patients, but a lot of my clients who have taken the probiotic, great results. Now, I love the way the company has taken that same NRF2 technology and applied it to different areas. If you look at the over here in the top left, based on that study with LSU, remember I said that LSU in conjunction with the Skin Cancer Foundation, they did a study on its effects. Well, at their recommendation, we created an NRF2 activated skincare line. Great results. In fact, there's actually some surgeons and plastic surgeons that are using this because of its wound healing properties. If you look at the top right of the screen, that is the world's first NRF2 activated hair care system. Absolutely phenomenal. Have had great results with that. Bottom left is our weight management system. It has it's a great fat burn, our whey protein, and then the prebiotic, which actually is a sort of like the fertilizer for your probiotic. And then of course we have Pet Tandem, which is an NRF2 for our four-legged friends. All right, now, people often ask me I'm sorry, give me just a second. My apologies. So people often ask me if these products are available through stores, and the answer is that they used to be. Shortly after that ABC primetime report aired, LifeVantage tried to market their product through conventional means such as big box stores like GNC, Whole Foods, CVS, and other stores like that. But the problem was that because if you've ever been inside one of these stores, there's products everywhere, and typically the store clerk is not educated, is not going to take the time to explain the benefits of the product. Certainly not like I'm doing here today. So Protandim sat on the shelves selling less than 1 bottle per store per month. Meanwhile, you have all of these studies coming back saying that this works 100% of the time on 100% of mammals. Studies, for example, LSU against cancer. There was some on diabetes, Parkinson's, so forth. And then, of course, you have the Washington State University study that says that NRF2 may well become what? The most extraordinary therapeutic and most extraordinary preventative breakthrough in the history of medicine. So LifeVantage was faced with a dilemma: how to get the word out on the product and the research. So they brought in a group of consultants, and after much debate, it was agreed upon that this was a product whose story needed to be told, not by some 10-second TV commercial that no one's going to watch, but by the very people whose lives had been changed by it and were willing to share their experiences. Now, as a business owner, that made perfect sense to me. It's how Diane and I built our clinic through referrals, basically through word of mouth. It's how many small businesses get started. And now with social media and technology, it's even easier, but better to do. Suffice to say, the strategy worked out very well. LifeVantage grew from a $2 million company all the way up to knocking on the door of $250 million. More than that, they created an opportunity for people just like you and I to capitalize on something that we're already doing, which is sharing our experiences with others. And we do that all the time, right? Whether it be movies or whatever we're excited about. And think about my son, Seth. My son no longer needs special education. This did for him in a couple months what 8 years of therapy couldn't do. And do you think that maybe I've reached out to a few parents who are struggling with a very similar situation? Yeah, of course I have. What about Anna Cox or Lori Miranda? Anna was using a walker, and Lori's son couldn't talk, among other things, and both of them have seen extraordinary changes. Do you think that maybe a few people have noticed? I would hope so. Do you think that maybe they've shared this with a few other people? Yeah, of course they have. It's what we do as humans. We connect with others and we share information that we believe in. So LifeVantage will reward you based on the number of people that you can help. And it's always important to do this with, share with from your heart, share with authenticity. And when you do that, LifeVantage will reroute their advertising dollars to reward people like you and I. So as I mentioned, LifeVantage is a biotech company, publicly traded on NASDAQ, and that's important because our numbers are scrutinized by the SEC, the Security and Exchange Commission. So for example, if you are a Pro 3, your business is doing about $5,000 in volume, and your monthly income is approximately $636 per month. Now that may not seem like much to some of you, but for others, that's making all the difference in the world right now. As one guy put it, he said, I'd have to work a lot of overtime to make an extra $600 per month. And of course, next month he'd have to do it again, and then the month after that, and the month after that. But what makes LifeVantage different is that when you have a client, you only have to set that client up or teach that client one time. In other words, once you've helped someone to connect to your website and they place their order, you don't have to show them again every month. They basically reorder every month whatever they need based on their health goals. And because LifeVantage ships all the products directly to them, you never have to touch the product. You're almost like a broker connecting people with their products. And every month, LifeVantage sends you a portion of the proceeds. Now, at Pro 5, you're earning approximately $2,900 per month. Diane and I achieved this rank in about 6 months. And you know, look, the money is great, especially right now. But more importantly, it's knowing that we're helping people like Anna and Lori and the hundreds of clients that we've helped whose lives have been changed just because we cared enough to share this with them. Now, some of you are a little bit more ambitious and you're more interested in the elite ranks such as Pro 7, Pro 8, Pro 9, and so forth. And there's other bonuses as well once you achieve those elite ranks. One of them is the elite pool, which pays out 4% of the total global sales to everyone who's at that Pro 7 and above. So there's a lot of money at those ranks, obviously. But look, whatever level you're comfortable with, just get back with the person who invited you, and we'll help you come up with a strategy that best meets your long-term goals. Now, to be eligible to qualify for those commissions, you simply enroll as a distributor. And LifeVantage makes it very simple to do that. They have 3 different packages to choose from. And again, just get back with the person who invited you and let them know what you would like to do. Now, every now and then, someone will ask me, or Diane, why we chose to become distributors, especially after declining so many other quote-unquote opportunities. And you know, part of it is that Diane and I believe that making a living, helping people is a wonderful way to live. And as a business person, I understand that there's multiple criteria to determine a company's viability. So for example, to be in business, you have to have a product or a service. And we realize that LifeVantage products are they're second to none. They're award-winning, triple patented, and category creating. Unlike a lot of the other Me Too products and opportunities that I declined over the years with LifeVantage, we have exclusivity. That means that there's no competition. And with our triple patents, we have that exclusivity, for like the next 20 years. Now, another important factor to consider in a business is the timing. Let me explain why that's important. If we were here discussing the original cell phone technology, remember these guys right here? Nobody would be very excited. Now think about it. Both of these make wireless communication possible, but smartphone technology has made the old way of doing things obsolete. In the same way, activating your cell's own ability to produce their own antioxidants has made the old way of supplementing obsolete. Another way of explaining it is using Everett Rogers' innovation adoption curve. For example, when the smartphone technology first came out, very few people knew what smartphone was, or they knew nothing about applications. However, by the time the iPhone 4 hit the market, Apple's value began to skyrocket because it just took people time to get accustomed to the technology. And now everyone knows, has, and utilizes smartphone technology. So how does that relate to LifeVantage? Well, in the health and wellness industry, we have our hands on a baby apple. It started off with our flagship product, Pro Tandem, which was doing about $2 million in volume. Today, we're strategically in the same position as the iPhone 4. And if that's true, then the question is, where do you want to be positioned when LifeVantage becomes a multi-billion-dollar company? And as I mentioned before, LifeVantage is a publicly traded company on NASDAQ. And in January of 2020, we were honored having been invited to do what's called the ringing of the bell. So as you can see, LifeVantage as a company is a big, big deal. And all that is wonderful. But what was most important to me, and I'm sure you would agree, is what is the caliber of people that I'm going to be working with directly. And so for us, that was a big, big deal. So these are just some of the folks that we work with. Again, there's so many people on this workshop, but I'll just go through a couple of this real quick. This is Patsy Caulfield. This is the young lady who I made her wait 3 years before I would sit down and watch this. I really appreciate her patience and never giving up on us. Of course, we have the fabulous Carrie Williams. Over here, you got next to her Maria Williams. And then over here, our good buddies, Randy and Brenda Geary, Dr. Melody Rodarte, who's one of the top internal medicine physicians in the Phoenix area. So regardless of whether you are a health professional or stay-at-home mom, if you have a passion for helping people, you can do this. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and end the slides right now. And all right, guys, that concludes our workshop for today, our conference for today. I encourage you, get back with the person who invited you and let them know what you would like to do. You know, no one likes guessing games. Let them know if you're interested. If you're not interested in any aspect of it, that's fine. No one's going to pressure you. If you're interested in becoming a customer, great. They'll show you how to do that. And if you are interested in looking at the business opportunity that goes along with it, great. Let them know and we'll come up with a game plan. All right, guys. Thank you so much for your time. I appreciate it. Y'all have a blessed evening.
Thank you. Good night.
Good job, Marco. Thank you.